I would say to stay centered in that is to put my faith in Jesus Christ and my personal Savior, and just spending time in the Word and doing things like that, and really trying to act in a way that makes sure that I'm treating everybody as I would want to be treated and treating them fairly, and trying to stay grounded in that, which isn't always as easy to do as you might like.
Welcome to the Build It to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. And we believe that the key to scaling and compounding your wealth in life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Each and every guest that we have is an entrepreneur, millionaire, or billionaire, where they share their secrets and insights with us to help us level up our wealth, our business, our faith in life, so we can give more or all of it away. I'm excited about our next guest. He is a dear client of mine, and someone who's been in the insurance industry for quite some time. In fact, he earned an insurance brokerage consulting firm in Newport Beach, California for a few decades as well. Built up that business with a business partner and owned a building. And then we're going to be talking about his story and his story to the Deferred Sales Trust and working with our company. But overall, just his story about helping people in the insurance industry. Please welcome to the show with me, Kent Crawford. Kent, how are we doing?
Doing great. Good to see you, Brett.
Awesome.
Great
to see you.
Been a little while. It's always good to talk to you.
Yeah. We got together a few times actually when I was at my California days, although I'll be back in the summer coming up. But it's good to see you and spend some time with you as always. And by the way, we're streaming this also on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channel as well for those that are listening. So Kent, let's start with this. Tell us a little bit of your story, getting into the insurance world, scaling your business. Right. Talk to us a little bit about that journey. Just kind of, take us through those years.
Sure. Well, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest and graduated from college up here and went to work for, there was a large insurance company that was headquartered in downtown Portland. I was hired as what they refer to as a group sales rep, which is a common practice. They hire a lot of young people out of college, and then was sent to Southern California, which I thought would be a couple-year journey and get some experience and come back. But what happened was, loved Southern California, loved the business climate, especially at that time, and met some people that I was selling to. One of which, Bob Clemmo, who you've met, who's you meet Bob once, you've got a friend for life. Just one of the greatest guys in the world. And ended up partnering with him and a couple other guys. And we had at that time, a smaller regional agency that had been in Southern California for years, but really was great reputation, ready to take off. And so we came in at that time, younger guys with high energy and a lot of contacts and a lot of drive. And we built it up to a really nice agency and had a great situation. And in the process, Bob and I bought a building by the Orange County John Wayne Airport, and that became a part of our asset ownership as well. And the building was a huge success. It was great to have it during our business time. But we eventually sold the agency to a larger entity. There was private equity involved, and which is very common, especially at that time, and have moved on, and now I just work with a handful of clients doing consulting, clients I've had long time relationships with, and it's a really fun stage of life at this point in time. My kids are young adults, and so have grandchildren, watching them grow up and do fun things.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love Newport Beach. One of my favorite places in the whole world, and it's such a beautiful place. And so you start out. You start out and you find some business partners, and you guys grow this thing. You buy the building because you're having success. That obviously that area explodes even more so over all these years. Massive appreciation. You mentioned one thing. You sold your agency to a large group. I'm curious, at the time when you sold it, did you have the large capital gains tax and some pain there? Talk about a little bit about that as the kind of the precursor to how, get into the deferred sales trust.
Yeah, we did. And, that's a challenge. And I didn't know you at that time, unfortunately. but we didn't know that there was any other opportunity, to use a use a trust or to work with somebody like you. And then fortunately, when we went to sell the building, and we can roll into this, but we were, like anyone else, we were looking hard at doing a 1031 exchange. And all the challenges that are tied to a 1031 exchange, like for like transaction, timing, we bumped right into those, and they are challenges. They're, unless you're someone who's unique, who's got a great up leg or has that exchange ready to go, very, very difficult to pull off a 1031 exchange and make it worthwhile. You can do a 1031 exchange. You can also go to a Delaware statutory trust, but you're really, really limited. Fortunately, I met you in the marketplace and introduced you to Bob. And of course, his first reaction was a little bit like mine, which was, this is too good to be true. It just, and so we met, we had multiple conversations. You introduced us to the legal counsel that you use. And through those conversations, we started to gain, real confidence that, hey, this could really work. And then I think you might recall, we invited our CPA to a meeting with you guys. And we told him, we had a conversation with him before our meeting. We told him, our goal for you is to tear this apart. We want you to shoot it down every angle that you can. And so we prepped him as much as we could, because we told him at that time, in which I've shared with you, I think I even told you before the meeting, the goal was if there's a hole in this, we want to find it right now, not 5 years down the road. So he went into the meeting, and you spoke with him, and also Jake Pfeiffer, and he came back to us. He had a couple of other small questions, but really quickly, I think it was less than 48 hours, he came back to us and said, this sounds great. And frankly, I was a little surprised that he wasn't aware of it, which I found sense to be very, very common, as you and I have discussed in the past. But he thought it was just a great idea. And so we went forward and put the trust in place, and actually allowed Bob and I to have flexibility. We were at different stages of our lives, as you came to be aware of. And so we both had different goals in terms of what we wanted to accomplish with the funds from the sale of the building. And by working with you and your team, it allowed both of us to accomplish our goals in a way that was really positive for both of us. And, we've been really pleased with the outcome.
So much there, Kent. And so let's break some of this down. And thank you so much for sharing that story here on how you came to the deferred sales trust. Yeah. And for our listeners who are listening and learning maybe this for the first time, the deferred sales trust works for business sales as well as real estate. It can be Bitcoin, it can be stock, it can be LLC, S Corp, whatever you're selling, really, primary home. When Kent sold the business, it wasn't even 1031 eligible. Actually, at that point, it might have been, depending on the laws and the rules. But it's always just it can be very, very hard to just roll the bowling ball right down the middle and hit a strike, right? It's a lot of challenges, 45, 180. But that being said, like you mentioned, a good point on this last piece that, different goals, the partners, right? And typically in the 1031, the whole entity must move, meaning you must go all into the next deal. And I think it's been close to 2.5, 3 years, maybe, Kent, I think, since we did the deal or so. And the marketplace was a very different place than it is today in real estate. And just think about the ability to diversify the wealth, not overpay for property at that point where interest rates have now shifted, and something, especially, office or even retail or even multifamily, down 10, 20, 30% from the peak. And so the ability to shift, and we'll talk about some of those advantages, but I think the other thing I want to just talk about is your CPA. So I love that approach, right? Hey, shoot this thing down. Our goal is for you to shoot the holes. We don't want to be surprised in 5 years. This is a building that we're selling for multiple millions of dollars. It's in California, one of the heaviest regulated tax states. We are not, we're not looking to be in a situation where we have to be, thinking about this, down the road, nor do we want to get interest and penalties. And so this your CPA goes into this scenario looking for that. Within 48 hours, he's like, "Hey, it looks great to me." Was there besides that piece of it, and your CPA saying yes? Was there any other like things for you and or Bob that you needed to overcome that you want to talk about, and then how did you get through it?
Yeah, I think a great thing, and let me step back too, because it's been a couple of years, but as I recall, I think I found you on YouTube. Um, I was looking at some other financial information, and I think I listened to a couple of your podcasts and reached out to you and had a conversation. And you couldn't have been more attentive and prompt to get back to me. And frankly, I would tell anybody that's thinking about working with you, and I've teased you about this openly, so I'll say it on camera, but I teased you, when I call you, you call me back and like quickly. And if I send you an email, I get a response back quickly. And I started teasing you after we'd worked together for a few months. I teased you and I said, I'm really surprised that I hear back from you so promptly, because I kind of figured once the deal was done, I'd be working with someone else on your team all the time, and it'd be odd to talk to you. And I didn't mean that negatively. I meant it as a compliment. You're out there working hard and hustling and building your brand, and you're doing a great job. But and sometimes I do interact with your team, and they're great, and that's fine. And I'm very pleased with that part of it. But you have, anytime I want to talk to you, you are available in ways that leaves me scratching my head, frankly. Sometimes you're a sharp young entrepreneur raising a family. You got a lot of things on your plate, but we've had conversations at 9:00 at night your time, because I'm on the West Coast and you're on the East Coast, and it's not a once in a while scenario. If I'm looking to talk to you about something, especially early on, I had some questions, but you've been great at being a business partner and acting as a business partner. So I really wanted to make sure I shared that with anybody who might be thinking about reaching out to you. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah. And by the way, Ken is so likable. So if you're as likable as Ken, I don't mind taking calls at 9:00. However, yeah, no, in all seriousness, it is a lot, right? I mean, this is multiple millions of dollars, and this is legacy. This is massive tax deferral. This is wealth building. All right, these are big decisions, right? That are once in a lifetime type of decisions, and so we need all hands on deck. And especially in the very beginning, it's a full court press, and it's all in to get it done in time, because there's always typically time constraints. And then when we close, and then it's, as much as the client needs us, we're there. And at the same time, we have a lot of educational opportunities within YouTube, within our book, within different, we even having, more and more client experiences where you can come live in person. And, we spent some time together at another family office conference, right? So we really want to build a community, where it's not a transactional relationship. It's really transformational mini family office building of the wealth, because quite frankly, that's how you create and become a great steward of the capital moving forward. It's not just you building it, you exiting it. It's also establishing the team to help you as you pass it on to the next generation, or as you want to go into new investment opportunities or look at different angles. Like, it's just, most of our entrepreneur clients are so focused on what they did, like in your scenario, insurance, right? And owning that one building. And now you're harvesting the gains of the building, and also, semi-retiring from the insurance agency, right? Mostly. And so you have, this new freedom of opportunity with the wealth and your time and your energy. And it's like, how do we come alongside and customize a wealth plan that really is going to help you get to where you want to get to, right? And that takes time for us to spend together and strategize, which is honestly my favorite part. The tax stuff is actually pretty simple once you understand some of the concepts and what we're doing. But it's really the strategy and the team to execute on the business plan, which we're going to touch on here, and some really cool stuff that even Kent brought to the table that have helped to accelerate even the offering for our clients. Okay, so thank you for that compliment. So so let's go back before we get into the other good things. Was there anything else like, so the CPA saying yes, okay. Was there any other, you watched the YouTube channel and you understood and got to know, like, and trust me, like, was there anything else that you're like, I'm not quite sure, and I had to answer, or, that could help the listeners? I'm just trying to bring up any objections, Kent, that you might have had thinking back. And then I answered it and you're like, oh, okay, then I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's a great question, Brett. And I think the biggest thing, and I think I've commented to you on this when I've made a couple of investment decisions and we've talked them through, and you've played your role as a trustee. But I think the biggest thing was as you talked about, once the transaction closed and the trust was formed, it became a legal entity and took the funds. There's kind of a feeling like, okay, well, what's next? This money's here. We've got this trust. And, in the insurance business, I was able to have some success because I wasn't afraid of new ideas. I would go, and I still do, go out and look. I use a lot of captive management with clients and have taken them into more complex strategies, but I tease them frequently that I have to keep it simple because I graduated from a state university, and they chuckle, but it gets the point across. Yeah. And that was one of the things that you did a great job, in anticipating talking to is, what were some of the things that really made this work and made me as pleased with the process is there's a lot of flexibility with the trust, working with a separate LLC and diversifying. And so you would talk me through, okay, you can do this, you can take this step, you could take that step. And so we would talk through those things, and it's like, oh, I would have an aha moment. Okay, now I get it. You're not going to understand unless you're very unique or you've done something similar in the past. You're not going to understand all those things as you close the transaction. But you go forward, and there has to be that level of trust, and you take that next step. And we've done some really interesting things investment wise, which to me has been the fun part, and things that obviously in a traditional 1031 exchange you have no opportunity to do any of those things. And like you said, I mean, the real estate market, especially on the commercial side, is 180 degrees different than it was when we actually went into the sale of our building. I mean, so many things have happened. Interest rates, Ukraine, in 22, the stock market decided to crater for a while, have a major correction. So a lot of those things were unfolding, and we were in a really safe position going forward. And so looking back, it was, it couldn't have unfolded any better. But those were really, really important things that you kind of shepherded us through that process.
I think that's a great point you bring up. Yeah, it really sounds like, hey, at a certain point in being that you're an insurance and you're expert and you're craft and consulting and like you're very, it's like at a certain point, and you probably have done this with your clients as well. Like, hey, I have the roadmap and I've done it many times and I know how we're going to get you where you're going to get to. And I can tell you how we're going to do it, but to realize that you're not going to understand, all of it all at once, right? Maybe you get 50 or 60% of it, maybe you get 70 or 80% of it. But over time, as we finish the transaction, as you have time to digest and time to get educated, you will understand more and more and more of it. But quite frankly, you can't replace the 10,000 hours, right, in this short period of time and expect yourself to have all the answer. I think sometimes we want everything to be Googleable, right? Right? Even I guess now it's ChatGPTable, right? GPTable, like, well, what about this and that and this? And it's just like, we don't even know the context of which we're asking the questions. But what you're saying is, hey, at a certain point you had to, hey, CPA says yes. Okay, I get the general concept. I know where I want to go. And I got to trust Brett to take me there. And over time, it's like riding the bike, I think is an analogy that I would use, right?
It's a great analogy.
It's going to be wobbly at first because you've never rode the deferred sales trust bike for a multi-million-dollar exit and then all of the things within this short period of time. However, as we ride the bike together, you'll become a speed racer eventually, right? And maybe surpass, the person who's guiding you along the way. But you have to take a step of faith and trust. I mean, the whole point of this is trustee, right? Think about it. You have to put the trust in the trustee. So you got to trust the trustee. Trust the process and the legal team. So you're not just blindly trusting. There's thousands of transactions, close to a 30-year track record, over 30 audits, no change, no findings, most of them in California. All of that's there. CPA says good. And then you take the step forward and then you learn as the transaction closes and as we go. Is that a fair summary on that part, Kent?
That's a great summary, Brett. And I used to have and I still use it at times when I'm sitting there trying to explain to somebody why they should, like, this is the structure we're going to use. And so I'll make a comment that to them is that, like, knowing what I know based on my years of experience, if I were sitting in your chair, this is the decision I would make. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of we got to kind of hold hands and jump off the dock into the water together. We're at that point in the decision making. You're either going to jump off the dock with me or you're not. And they'll laugh and, take some of the pressure off. But that's really what it was. It's like, okay, I believe in the concept. And I told you, we believed in the legal structure. We believed in the due diligence. You did a great job of getting us comfortable with that, frankly, very quickly. And so it's like, okay, we're doing this. And, as we've gone forward, and I've been more working more closely with you than my partner, Bob. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with him a couple months ago. And I said, hey, have you gone forward and done this with Brad? He said, no. And again, he's a different stage of his life, little different position, and a little slower to embrace. And it's not a negative. But I said, hey, I did this with Brett and we're working on this. And it's really a great idea. You really ought to call him and talk to him about it because this is working out great. And he's like, wow, I really like that idea. And so, you've done a great job of consulting with me in a financial advisor position that, candidly, I didn't expect. I didn't anticipate that our relationship would work like that. The other thing that, that I wanted to, in thinking about our discussion today, I wanted to, anyone that might be listening to this, you've introduced me to some really interesting people in what I would call our alternative investment class. And when I say alternative, that doesn't mean risky. I'm not a huge proponent of taking a lot of risk, although I'm not afraid of it, if it's framed well. But you've introduced me to some really interesting people who, a couple I've worked with, and then you introduced me to the people at DLP who I never would have, I don't think I ever would have met them in the marketplace based on, my knowledge base. And you introduced me to them right away. And that's just, fantastic relationship. People at Sunrise Capital Investors, I was aware of them. You and I talked about, they were on my radar. And it turned out you had a relationship or a friendship with them. And so, and I couldn't be happier working with them. And so I have investments in really high quality commercial real estate that I never would have gotten to without, kind of being a part of your network. So that's been a home run in and of itself as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And also thank to Don Winter, DLP Capital, and Kevin Bupp with Sunrise Capital, and Brian Spear.
Right.
And these are mobile home park, amazing, and parking lot experts for Sunrise Capital, and then multifamily lending and development of properties with DLP Capital. Probably, I think, the best at what they do in the industry. And the beauty of the deferred sales trust is you can take this office complex in Newport Beach, California, at the height of probably the market, pretty close to it, sell it, diversify the wealth. And by the way, Bob did do a deferred sales trust, right? Which is nice. And Kent did it,
Right.
separate trust that owe them the money and they can invest in different ways. And so what Kent was referring to is there's certain investments that Kent maybe move a little bit faster on, and Bob, maybe he's going to move a little bit slower and make decisions a little bit slower on it, which is totally fine. That's the beauty. Like, you're not having to make, decisions with all of the wealth in the trust all at once, all in one asset class, all at the same time. You can dollar cost average, and you can, put your toe in the water, and then you can put even more in the water and keep going with these investments. And now you've been able to, with the trust, invest into a mobile home park fund, parking lot fund, multifamily lending and housing. And then we'll talk about here in insurance in a second. But just think about that. That is such a great way to diversify the wealth, right? And to be able to get excess double-digit returns and not be tied to, like, just selling. Imagine the office complex. Imagine you just buy one other building,
Right.
and you buy it at the peak, and all of that work, time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears for 20 plus years of owning property and real estate and looking for the appreciation. People are getting sunk right now. They're sinking because the interest rates are resetting. They paid at the height of the market, and now the debt is reset and it's sinking the ship. And they're just like, "What did I do the 1031 for?" And we're like, "Exactly. That's why you don't do the 1031." Any last thoughts on the 1031 being kind of a bad deal when the market's hot?
Well, and I can say this where you can't on an interview like this, but knowing what I know now about the deferred sales trust versus the 1031, and I thought the 1031 was great. I had done it years ago in some residential real estate. Just thought it was, and I still think it's great. But from my perspective, you have an opportunity to go into the deferred sales trust versus the 1031. 100 times out of 100, I take the deferred sales trust just for so many reasons. And you touched on several in what's happened in commercial real estate, especially in the office space. I mean, to be very candid, we got lucky in that we got some rezoning. And so our building was bought for medical use, which made a lot of sense in that space. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, in the words of, Bill Russell, one of the great basketball players of all time. So it's fortunate. But man, I would not want to be in the office space, in Southern California right now. 10 years from now, that might be different, but the world shifted after COVID and people not, coming into the office, and the need for space has dropped dramatically.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this and you want to consider the deferred sales trust versus the 1031, you should go to our website right now, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, and schedule a one-on-one consultation with myself, one of my team members, as long as you have $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, potential exit coming up. Could be for Bitcoin, businesses, real estate, primary home, any asset of any kind, and get started. We also have what's called the best 1031 exit plan, which gives you a partial 1031 exchange opportunity and a partial deferred sales trust. Sometimes we do a little bit of both. We do kind of like a bifracture 1031. And so again, we think a 1031 is great when it perfectly, or at least closely as it can, align with your goals and the outcome that you want to achieve with your wealth plan. We think it's amazing. But here's the reality: the deferred sales trust, especially, and I think in a times like this, more often than not, and more probable than not, it not only aligns with the wealth goals, it far exceeds it, and also takes off risk off the table. You have asset protection built in, which is really important. Okay. You have no debt. You don't have to do any debt replacement. You can diversify the wealth. You can dollar cost average. You can also be an entrepreneur. Kent said, hey, I want to go start another insurance agency. I want to buy another office building. I want to buy an apartment complex. He can actually partner with the trust and go do that. And so if he wanted to be more entrepreneurial, he could. Like, we're not taking away the ability for Kent to build the capital. We're just giving him enhanced ability to do it at his own timing. And that's really where I think it clicks for people once they understand that piece. But sometimes it's hard. It's hard to get the old dog to do the new tricks or the new things. It's just part of why we're hearing Kent sharing his story. Okay, so let's keep moving now, Kent. All right, so we have some of the objections or the thoughts, the hesitations. The legal team got on board. You felt good about, you knew enough to trust that it's going to work, and Brett's going to, our team's going to educate you along the way. And then we've diversified some of the wealth, right, which has been awesome within the real estate world at good timing. By the way, we didn't do that all the way. We actually went into debt right away for a while, right? We sat in debt and we let the real estate market shift down as the time has gone by. And then we dollar cost average at opportune times. And then second or third, I guess at this point, we do a joint venture LLC into the insurance. And this is where I think it's kind of fun here, right? Because then I get to learn from an expert in yourself and a gentleman that had on my podcast. And so our network is now enhancing it. So walk through the strategy, Kent, so people can hear it in your words, and let's kind of break it down for everyone who's listening.
Sure. Yeah. And this is again, one of the great things about the deferred sales trust. So having been in the insurance industry for for my entire career, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is the value of life insurance, and cash value life insurance in particular. There's some people out there that put negative connotations around cash value life insurance, but typically they don't understand, or they don't have the right product. There are lots of choices in that product space. So I actually met a gentleman, Dan Thompson, through, you interviewed him in a situation like this. And he was talking about something that I was aware of. I'd never done myself, but I was aware of. We had done it. I had introduced people that were focused on estate planning. And I knew that, Fortune 500 companies that have deferred compensation arrangements, in the past, they've used really high quality life insurance policies to essentially insure that deferred compensation arrangement. And I can go into more detail, but that's not the point of this conversation. But I met Dan. I reached out to Dan through you, and we started having some conversations, and it became apparent that Dan knew what he was talking about and was good, good at his craft. And I wanted, I joke around and I tease Dan all the time. I said, it's really funny. I've unfortunately dealt with clients that became in a terminal situation, or I've dealt with families afterwards in privately held businesses, which was my client base. And nobody was ever upset because they had a lot of death benefit at the time that they lost a loved one or a key business partner. And I looked at the trust and the LLC that we established as business entities and recognized my role as a key person over these next few years, and what would happen if, unfortunately, something happened to me. Even though I'm very healthy, none of us, know when our final day is, and so really wanted to have some additional death benefit if something happened to me that would come in and bring cash into the entities. And that cash comes in tax-free based on the value of life insurance. So it's really phenomenal in and of itself from that standpoint. But Dan does a lot of work with leverage life insurance, and then leveraging that and also rolling those funds out and putting them into cash generating investments. So he was talking the language that really appealed to me, that I, really liked. And so we worked through that process, placed life insurance. If something were happening to me, it'll bring in, a little over $2 million in additional liquid cash, within weeks, all tax free. And so we put that in place, went through the process, worked closely with he and his team, and he's got a great team as well, really high quality human being. And we put that in place, and now we're looking to leverage that life insurance. And we've got cash that we pulled out and bring into the LLC, and we'll reinvest that. So we've got the best of both worlds going. And, it's just a huge benefit to doing this, and just makes the trust in the LLC, the trust in particular, makes it so much more valuable. And in the future, we'll probably do some more. And then there's an opportunity for some legacy giving, to, in particular, to grandchildren, to the university that I attended. I'm back in that university town. So my daughter works for the same college that I graduated. My grandmother graduated from there in 1922. So, a lot of strong emotional ties to this area and the people involved in it.
Amazing, Kent. Yeah. And so I want to kind of say what Kent said and consolidate a little bit here. So the trust itself was able to joint venture partner with Kent into an LLC, and this LLC was able to buy a life insurance policy of which the death benefit is substantial to Kent and Mrs. Crawford, right? The trust also has a portion of the death benefit too, so something happened to Kent, right? Which is a part of keeping commercially reasonable and business purpose and such. But understand that California depreciation recapture, federal tax, would have taken about 40% of Kent's exit, okay? And so that would have been gone forever, right? With the deferred sales trust, we're able to defer all of that and then turn around and tax deferred basically fund a life insurance policy, okay? And that's the power of compounding effect within the deferred sales trust, and the power of not having to be forced into like kind investment real estate via the 1031 exchange. By the way, we still went into investment real estate, right? And we've gone in I think we've done a little bit of some securities as well. We've done some debt, and we've diversified. And this just gets another piece here of large payout should something happen to Kent, which is another attractive piece of how to make the DST an investment and not an expense. Kent, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for also asking and being curious enough to explore this, right, and go through it. And now this becomes like a template for future clients as well to unlock this type of legacy giving and legacy planning, and it's life insurance is a big part of that. And I like the way you put that. Like, if properly structured and with the right product, life insurance is an amazing thing, right? Same as the deferred sales trust. If properly structured in the right way, it's incredible, right? You just have to know and work with a team that knows how to execute it in a way that's going to give you the best outcome. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts on that before we move towards maybe just kind of kind of open questions that or thoughts that you also want to share that could be helpful for the listeners?
The life insurance has, it's great power to leverage, again, a permanent, cash value based life insurance with really high quality cash value. But I think, one of the biggest thing that I would, another important thing that I would share with somebody that's listening to this is, I think about again, I made a reference to this, but the people that you've introduced me to, like we were talking about the debt, working with BRD Land. I mean, they're great. I never would have met those people, and I never would have known that an opportunity existed like that. And it's a great diversity play in terms of funding things. You've also, you've done a great job where the salesman in me gets excited about something, and I would want to put X amount of money into a certain investment, and you would kind of pull the reins back and talk me through, why do you really want to do that? What, in really acting as a very professional trustee, hey, maybe you should think a little differently, not telling me no, because then I'd probably push back. But getting me to stop and think about, hey, this is the longer term vision. This is what we're talking about. So again, that financial advisor, and you don't, when I listen to you, you don't talk enough about that. It's not that you should, but I don't think you make people aware enough that, you're going to, somebody that works with you, they're going to get pulled into that orbit, and they're going to meet people that are not easy to meet. I did a deal in oil and gas, which is, you and I have talked about. I probably wanted to go a little too aggressive. You kind of made me reframe. Again, didn't make me, but you suggested, and there's great advice, and I reframed it, but it's great. And it's a limited partnership. It's working out fantastic. We're dealing, repurposing some wells, and it's fun to be a part of, and it's even more fun because it's doing well. But those are, again, opportunities that came because I got into that orbit and that network that you work with.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think with what you're saying, it sounds like you appreciate the and I kind of phrase it real estate investment advisory, right? My one of my, I think, strengths and gifts that I've been given is I'm really good at real estate investing and brokerage and structuring and development. It's been in my world my whole life, growing up with my dad in mom and dad in the Bay Area, building houses, going to Marcus and Millichap, helping people structure 1031s, multifamily sales, underwriting, all of those things.
Right.
A lot of good training. And I'll also learn like the hard way of things like what not to do, like the 2008 crash, like the painful things of not asking the questions and slowing down and strategic enough. And I think, even myself, like if I'm like you, Kent, like if I'm looking at something, it's easy to get a little bit of the emotions ahead of the underwriting, right? And so even just having that extra set of eyes to look at it, where they're not coming from as much of an emotional standpoint, and they're just looking at strictly the numbers. There's wisdom and counsel, right? And so that's what I try to do, is ask great questions, be the guide, not the hero, right? And just say, okay, if I was in Kent's shoes, kind of what you said, what would I do in this situation based upon the fact pattern that I know from Kent, what he's trying to achieve, and the overall, success of the trust as well. And sometimes that means, slowing down a little bit or doing a little bit smaller investment, right? And then let's see how they perform. And if they are great stewards with that first 100,000 as an example, well, then maybe we double it, right? Or maybe we triple it, right? But we dollar cost average with them, and we trust and believe, but verify with the performance, right? And so all of those things are helpful. And what's neat about the deferred sales trust is, because of the nature of it, we're able to bring this team of professionals in that help to bring additional wisdom than you might just think than like a regular trustee, like on a living trust, is just it's static, right? It's kind of like set it and forget it. this is dynamic, right? It's so much more. It's a business trust, not just a regular revocable trust, right? So, anyways, yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions is to help you unlock capital gains to multiply your freedom and impact, and that starts with a mindset of cash flow and tax flow, and a team mindset to approaching wealth with your largest exit. So we take it very serious, and it's one of our core tenets of stewardship, our core values. And it's also the most enjoyable part, to be honest, because we get to strategize, we get to look at things together, right? It's cool. I get to learn from the stuff that you bring to the table too. And like the insurance, like we talked about. So excellent. That being said, Kent, anything else to share before we go to the lightning round?
No, just go back and double down on what I said before, that anybody who's even slightly considering working with you, strongly encourage them to reach out and set an appointment and talk to you. Your team's great. It's been great working with you, and it just gets better and better. So, major fanboy on this side of the camera.
Thank you, Kent. I'm honored, and it's our privilege to serve you and your family, and to continue to build wealth in the trust and helping you to build wealth outside of the trust as well. Okay, so that being said, let's go to the lightning round. Okay, Kent, knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget to make sure to tell yourself to do?
Invest in more real estate.
Yeah, that's good.
A lot more real estate.
Yeah, especially in the Newport Beach days when you were there. Yeah. Next question. Number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Oh, gosh. Number one book that I recommend. One of the books that's impacted me the most that I've read recently in the last 12 months is the 5 Regrets of the Dying. Really a thoughtful book. And I had a couple people or things that I follow recommend it, and finally took the time to read it right around the holidays, kind of Thanksgiving, Christmas. And some of it I knew just in, I was aware of just in other things I've read, but it did a really great job. And I think the author is Bronny James, not to be confused with LeBron James' son, the basketball player, but she's an Australian woman who spent a lot of her years as what we would call home health care aide. What they in Australia they call a caretaker, caregiver. A little different scenario, but she spent a lot of times in palliative care with people that were, they're in their last weeks of living, last months, and so it's a very thoughtful book.
Awesome. Let's check that one out for sure. 5 Regrets of the Dying. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
God, great question. The next stage of my life. So how to, I don't believe in a flaps down retirement. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about it. And I still got a lot of gas in the tank, but I think there's ways that I can be more, give more to other people and really enjoy kind of this fourth quarter of my life, so to speak.
That's awesome. That's great. Next question. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I think there's a couple, but, big fan of, Simon, I believe you pronounce his last name, Sinek. And he talks about leaders make people feel safe. The people that report to them, work with them, feel safe that they can take risks, that they can ask questions that might come across as foolish or dumb, and that the leader is going to be supportive. So making people feel safe working with you. That's
great. Love that. Next question, maybe top web that you're using, like a Chat GPT or AI. Anything that comes to mind, Kim?
Boy. I'm sorry, Brett. Repeat the question.
Top way that you're using, like a Chat GPT or an AI, like anything that like you're like, oh, I'm starting to use it with this, or this is the top way that I'm using it.
I'm not really doing a great job of using it, but the biggest, one of the best things in using AI is that I'm finding is in taking notes in conversations and meetings. It's just fantastic at capturing things that sometimes you lose because you're thinking about the next question or where you're going to go or how you're going to respond. Kind of like I just did. An amazing scenario. So I mentioned I'm in a college town. Well, the founder of NVIDIA is Justin Huang, who went to college here and grew up in this state. And he and his wife donated $50 million to a huge AI research facility on the campus. And the building is probably about 30% done. I have a couple Labradors, and I walk them around campus because it's a great flat surface, and college kids are always miss their pets, and they get a big kick out of interacting with their black labs, and they're just really sweet dogs, so they love college kids. But I see the building going up, and I think about, I heard somebody on a business meeting I was in saying we're only in the bottom of the first inning in AI, and how important it's going to be to our world, and I thought that was a really interesting comment, because I think we might be in the top of the first in AI. I think it's going to be huge in what it's going to do. And I know I see the investment that's being made here by some very, very smart people. So excited, even though I'm an older individual, I'm excited about what AI will bring to the table for future generations.
Awesome. And the last question is this. After all your success, helping all the clients you've helped, partnering with an amazing partner like Bob in the insurance industry, and just reflecting on all the past successes, right? How do you best stay centered in your values, Kent, right? And then also stay encouraged to charge forward or even reach even higher heights?
I would say that to stay centered in that is to really put my faith in Jesus Christ and my personal Savior, and just spending time in the Word and doing things like that, and really trying to act in a way that makes sure that I'm treating everybody as I would want to be treated, and treating them fairly, and trying to stay grounded in that, which isn't always as easy to do as you might like.
Amen to that, Ken. I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom, sharing your insights, furthering the advancement even of investments within the DST through insurance, and being just authentically caring for everyone, that your family, Bob, your business partner, right? Myself, like, it's always just so enjoyable. I just, people thought I told this before, but you get on the phone with Kent and you're smiling, right? You can't help but smile. Same thing with Bob too. Bob, you're smiling. You guys have such a joy and a presence. I'll never forget the dinner we spent at the Family Office Club in San Francisco and hanging out, and Bob telling all of his stories of playing for USC basketball against John Wooden's teams back in the day, and you guys, just talking about the insurance company and the business, and it's just always a joy to spend time with you, Kent. So I want to thank you for all of that, and putting your trust in Capital Gains Tax Solutions and me and our team to help serve you with the deferred sales trust. For our listeners, if they want to get in touch with you or find you somewhere, it could be LinkedIn, it could be somewhere. Is there Facebook? It could be something. Is there any place that they could find you, Kent?
Yeah, they could find me at Facebook, just Kent Crawford on Facebook, and happy to talk to anybody. If they want to reach out to you, if you want to give them my business email address. Yep. I'm happy to be a reference for you. As anyone who's listened to this for any more than a couple minutes understands, I just think the service that you provide and the structure that you have it's fantastic. I know there's some other people that are doing this in the marketplace. I don't think they can carry your shoes.
Thanks, Ken. I so appreciate the glowing recommendation, and I thank you again for being on the show. And with that being said, I also want to thank all of our listeners who are listening or watching this on the Capital Gains Tax Solutions or the Build to Billions podcast and YouTube channels. So appreciate everybody who's considering a deferred sales trust, who's considering working with Capital Gains Tax Solutions. We want to let you know that we're here for you to help you make a great decision for your exit, whether it be to use a 1031 or use a deferred sales trust, or just kind of explore all of your options. You go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get started today. Also, pick up the book on Amazon, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. And Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book, and a number of others, including Don Winter from DLP Capital, and the CPA for Tony Robbins is also in the book, Tyler McBroom, and it's there on Amazon, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. With that being said, please share, rate, review, subscribe. Give us some love on the podcast or the YouTube channel, and we will talk to everyone again real soon. Bye now. Bye.